I made a conscious decision to stop selling drugs, to stop selling crack. I said, you know what? I want to go to school. I want to go to college. I'm gonna stop. So I stopped for a few months, and I signed up for school for college. I was completely out the life. This was like when I was 17, and then I was arrested. It turns out that I was arrested for two crack sales that happened 8 months prior. The police were watching me for the entire 8 months. They only had the first two crack sales that they told me were 8 months prior, and in that time they were waiting to see if they could catch me with more sales, but they
Hmm.
didn't. But since they didn't, they end up arresting me for the two sales that they had.
Welcome back to the Invest in Yourself podcast. Today's guest features So Rich Entertainment. While dealing drugs, law enforcement started watching him and busted him months after he made the decision to quit selling drugs. When he got back on the street, he ended up getting involved with a street battle. He ended up going to prison for a number of years. During this time, he decided it was time to make a change in his life. Please subscribe to my channel for more interviews like this. And without further ado, let's get into his story. All right. Thanks for everyone for tuning back in for another episode. Today, I got a cool guest on today, man. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man. Give everyone a little background on who you are and where you grew up, man.
Peace and blessings, much respect to the people. My name is So Rich Paul. I'm from Long Island, New York. I grew up in Freeport. Long Island is a weird place, both counties, Nassau and Suffolk, because it's two of the most segregated counties in the country. So by segregated, I mean like you'll have one town that's $1 million town, $1 million homes, which is what people traditionally think of when you think of Long Island, right? Like, and then you'll have another town right next to it that's knee deep in poverty and experiencing, and that's experiencing a lot of things that a lot of our ghettos across America are experiencing. So like Long Island is kind of different like that. But yeah, man, I'm here. I'm blessed to be here, and let's talk. Let's build. Anxious,
Yeah,
ready.
yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking out the time and coming on, man, to share your story on how you reformed your life and how you got away from crime and really changed your life around and went in a whole different direction, man. It really is a good thing to see people out here like you changing your life around and really showing hope that things like that can be done. There is another way out, man. It's important for people to see that.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate you for having me, man. A lot of times we don't uplift this process, this transformation, these periods of redemption, and our brothers that went to jail, went to prison, or that was just living that lifestyle. So I'm glad to be on a platform that does.
Yeah. Well, what was it like for you growing up in the area you grew up in? And what got you into the whole crime and everything? Did you come from a broken home, or what was the situation like?
Well, so look, man, my mother is amazing. I want to start off like that. 'Cause I think a lot of times when we talk about these stories, like we focus on the deficits, understandably so, but in doing so, like we miss some key parts. So I just want to start off by saying that my mother was amazing. Unfortunately, my father wasn't in the picture for reasons that I can't honestly put my finger on in the moment. But life happens, right? So I'm in a space where right now I got a good relationship with my dad, even though we weren't able to build when I was young. But my father wasn't really in the picture when I was young. Like I said, I come from a neighborhood called Freeport, New York, Freeport, Long Island. So when I was growing up, Freeport had two sides, and those sides were separated by the train tracks. So on one side, it was predominantly white neighborhoods. It's a predominantly white neighborhood. It's more relaxed, a lot of money flowing through, houses by the water. And on the other side of the track is called the north side. That's where a lot of the black and brown people were at. That's where a lot of the crime took place. That's where a lot of the poverty was at, drugs, etc., gangs, and that's the side that I grew up on. So I grew up loving to play basketball. Like I love basketball as a youth. That's one of the things that really kept me focused and really kept me out of trouble. Around the time where I got the guard or the junior high school, things just started going left. And I attribute a lot of that just to the environment, man. When you're young and you're impressionable young boys, especially you don't have strong male figures consistently in your life, you're gonna look to the male figures that you see in the community. And around me, the brothers that I saw in the community, they was selling drugs, they were trapping, right? Like that's how we understood. That's how they understood how to make a living for themselves. So that's what I gravitated to. And also around that time where I was growing up, it was a lot of like heavy gang activity where I'm from. In Long Island, the geographic the in Long Island the gang landscape is different because we got your traditional gangs, they're predominantly black gangs, Bloods, Crips. Then you also have like the Central and Southern American gangs or gangs that come from California, right? Like MS, 18th Street, so like that dynamic was like that was a particular dynamic to my community. So like going to school when I used to walk to school, like I used to get like we used to get chased a lot. Like where I'm from, like if you was at one point we had a strong MS population and at the time, right, like they were doing what they was doing and we was doing what we was doing. And for us growing up, if you wore like a little bit of red, then they would assume that you was blood. At the time, they was beefing with blood, so like they would just like chase us down. So I would have like red shoelaces or a red shirt on my way to school, and then all of a sudden I would have these dudes, these brothers chasing me down like with machetes and all that. And that within itself was like, how am I going to even focus on my schoolwork when I gotta worry about certain things going to school and coming from school? So
Yeah, damn, it was pretty bad just to go to school, man. A lot of stuff going on just to even
yeah,
make it to
yeah,
school.
yeah, it was. And looking back at it, I'm really thinking about it like, wow. But honestly, back then it was just life. Like that's just what it was, right? Like that was normal to all of us. So yeah,
But
I was
back
life.
then, too, did you know that it was deeper than just colors with these gangs, like the history and stuff that was going on, or was it just the fact of the colors and stuff?
Well, I was a kid. I was 12, so I really didn't know too much of anything. I just knew that this was the culture of my community, right? And I
Right.
also knew that I had friends that was part of all gangs. So like where I'm from, we all grew up together, black Spanish, like we all go to school together. So a lot of my friends, like one of my childhood friends that I knew since first, second, third, fourth grade, he was involved in different gangs. At one point, he was in mess. So um, as many times where he saved me while I was walking on a block, and for whatever reason they wanted to attack me, he was like, "Nah, he good." Right? And then vice versa. It was sometimes where he was walking on the block on the wrong side of town, and brothers that I grew up with, my friends like, "Oh, look at one of them dudes right there," and I'm like, "Nah, he good, it's my man." Right? So like that was like that was the nature of it. Around seventh grade, things really started getting rough for me. I started being outside a lot more. Started getting involved in like stolen cars, weed, smoking weed, selling weed, and just more like um, fights and street activity. Um, I was associated with a gang from my neighborhood, but I didn't fully join yet. But those are my friends. So a lot of times when people talk about gang members and this that, like these are just my friends, right? Like I'm not looking at them like they're members of anything. I'm not looking at them like they're bad people, and I'm not a bad person. These are just my friends. We kids, and we striving to survive the best way we know how, based on the breakdown in the landscape of where we from. But like I said, I got involved in the stolen cars in seventh, eighth grade. Um, and then my mom sent me away because she already saw what was happening. She sent me away for ninth grade, to like this military school. It was like hell, but I didn't even know it kind of prepared me to be incarcerated or prepare me to get ready for that. When I came back, we had moved to Queens, but I used to come to Long Island a lot. So one day I came to Long Island and I was trying to find a way home. I was just asking one of my friends for a way home, a ride home. And as they gave me that ride home, they had an idea. It was four of us. They had an idea. They're like, "Yo, listen, let's go through some robberies." So on my way home, when I was just really trying to get a ride, my friends started jumping out and they started like robbing people.
Damn.
And I joined in too. Though I'm not gonna say I act like I didn't. I joined in, like I'm a kid. I just like, oh, that's what we doing. That's what we doing. The herd mentality. and we went on like a string of armed robberies. I was like 15 at the time. We were at the gas station too, and one of the dudes that I was with, silly, he shot the gas station clip. It was a lot, so I ended up getting arrested. I ended up getting arrested for that string of armed robberies, including a gas station clerk and an assault. The gas station clerk got shot in his leg. So I ended up going to the juvenile detention center out here. I was charged as an adult, used my YO, but I spent 6 months incarcerated. So that was my first time locked out. Then when I came home, it was like, as a kid, you come home, everybody showing you love, you still tour, you still firm, you ain't rat. So like, I was embraced even more, and I was pulled deeper into the street life, and that's when I started gaining like my leadership respect in the streets. So at that time I was selling weed. I went from selling weed to selling crack. And for me, back then it was blocks. So the block that I was on, like you couldn't come on that block. Anybody couldn't come on that block. People were scared to come on that block. I used to sell weed on that block. Then when I was selling weed on the blocks in Broadway and Freeport, Broadway and Graf and Mount, I started seeing all the crack money that was going around. So then I'm like, wow, hold on, I could do that. So I started selling crack, um, which was a grave mistake, and I'll realize that later. But I was seeing a lot of money, especially for a high school kid. I was driving, and then check this out. I made a conscious decision to stop selling drugs, to stop selling crack. I said, you know what? I want to go to school. I want to go to college. I'm gonna stop. So I stopped for a few months, and I signed up for school for college. I was completely out the life. This was like when I was 17, and then I was arrested. It turns out that I was arrested for two crack sales that happened 8 months prior. The police were watching me for the entire 8 months. They only had the first two crack sales that they told me were 8 months prior, and in that time they were waiting to see if they could catch me with more sales, but they
Hmm.
didn't. But since they didn't, they ended up arresting me for the two sales that they had. And for me, it was like weird because I did it. I was wrong, right? Let's let, let's
Mhm.
let's be clear. But also, I'm a teenager. So as a teenager who made bad decisions, and now if you're watching me, then you can see that I'm making better decisions, much better decisions. And I felt like it was structurally, it should have been a better way to handle that situation than to send me to jail or send a teenager to jail when he's already made the proper steps to turn his life around. Right, so I feel like that was a mistake, or that was an error in regards to the way that the justice system is structured. But I did it right, so I ended up doing another year and a half, 2 years
Two.
in prison
So yeah,
in
two.
the county jail now. Huh?
2 years. Damn.
Yeah, yeah. Really, it was a year and a half, and then I did an extra 6 months because I was on probation. I had probation in New York City, so altogether it ended up being 2 years. After that
Sweet.
2 years, after that 2 years, I came home and I was looking for a job. I'm like, damn, I'm tired of going to jail. I was 19. I was trying to figure it out. That's when I got introduced to this program from my neighborhood. The name of the program is called Strong. Strong is an acronym that stands for Struggling to Reunite Our New Generation. Um, it's an organization that works primarily with gang and street involved youth. So they actually gave me a job. I was looking for a job. I found this application, and on the application it said, yo, you had to be in a gang, you had to be locked up before, you had to be under the age of 21 for a job. I'm like, oh, this a job? I'm like, I'm perfect. So applied for the job, and the job was actually the program. And in that program, I met some amazing people, man, that really cared about me, that really cared about you, that really cared about our community. And they opened my eyes to a lot of different things because up to that point, after my basketball dreams went down the drain, I only wanted to be a kingpin. That was my goal. It was to be a kingpin, be a drug kingpin. And that's what I was working towards. So, like, they showed me, like, they introduced, like, the legal aspect of living that I related to, right? Like the social work aspect. So I really appreciated that, and they dug deep into my mind. I was working there for about 8 months, and then I continued to be a part of the program. I ended up catching a violation because I saw my best friend's little sister. At the time, she was about 14, and she was with this man who was about 33. And he was, you know, you could tell, you could read body language. He was walking with her, and they was talking, and he was kind of interacting with her, you know, in just a way that was just felt and seemed inappropriate. So I stopped the car and I pulled over, and I'm like, yo, listen, what's going on? You all right? And and I'm like, yo, what's going on, man? What are you doing with her? Right, just to make sure it wasn't a family member or something. And he was like, oh, you know, so we just talking, we hanging out. And I asked him, like, what you doing with him? He's like, no, he just came to get me. And so then, I knew it was inappropriate. And I probably shouldn't have did it, but out of my anger and also striving to protect my friend's little sister, I smacked him. Boom. And when I smacked him, I was young. When I smacked him, I had a lot of weight on me. You know, he fell, whatever. That was that. I warned him. I said, listen, leave her alone. And that was it. Right? Now, a few days later, 4th of July, I'm just taking you through my arrest history right quick, right? A few days later, 4th of July, I was on the train tracks. I see 10 police cars coming up the tracks. So I'm not thinking anything of it. Actually, I was very confident. I was very confident that for the first time in my life, I was very confident that this had nothing to do with me because I knew I wasn't doing any dirt. I was working. I wasn't selling any drugs. I wasn't participating in any type of illegal activity. So the cop cars are coming. I didn't pay any mind. Then like 20 cop cars came. I didn't pay any mind. Then they came up the steps right next to me. I didn't pay any mind. I was with my friend. I just knew they weren't coming for me. And then somebody tapped me on my shoulder. It was a cop. I still didn't pay it any mind. I said, hey, what's going on? He said, hey, how you doing? And then when he said that, he moved to the side. And when he moved to the side, I saw the dude that I smacked. And it wasn't until then that I realized, I said, oh, shit, they're coming for me. And the cop grabbed my arm and I ran. And when I ran, I was on top of the train track. So um, it's like a very, very tight space. And it was one cop running towards me full speed, and I was running towards the cop full speed, and we basically ran into each other, and I ran into him. I ran him over. He fell on the train tracks. He sprained his ankle or his knee, and he fell on the train tracks, and I kept running. And I just heard them chasing me, and I heard the walkie-talkies in the background, like, over, sit down, over, sit down. And then they cornered me in, they pulled their guns on me. And at that point, I'm like, all right, they might shoot, but they may kill me. And so I stopped, they got me. And then I had a assault on an officer also. So that situation with um the gentleman was a misdemeanor, but now I had a felony assault on the police. So I was arrested for that. I had to go back upstate to max
Damn.
out my parole time. And then when I maxed out my parole time, I bailed out on an assault on an officer. So now I'm fighting this assault on an officer. And I think I'm still 19 at the time. I'm 19 and 20. And I end up beating the assault on an officer due to months later, fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine says that anything that happens after an illegality of any part of the process, everything that comes after is poisonous. Is no good. So what happened was that he accused me of smacking him, right? But when he went to the police precinct, he didn't have any marks or bruises, and there weren't any witnesses. So there's such a low level of assault. If a cop didn't witness it himself, they're not supposed to. It's like a violation. They're not supposed to arrest, right? Because, like I said, he didn't have any marks or bruises, and nobody witnessed it. So it's he say, she say. So they're really supposed to issue me a violation, but because they didn't and they went through that procedure incorrectly, the assault on the officer ended up getting thrown out. So I was a free man, and
Damn,
I
how'd you
felt
feel about that?
I felt blessed. I was still young though, so I was smiling at the detectives like I thought I was the man. Right? And I just beat a assault on a cop. These are the detectives from my neighborhood, so they've been coming after me. I was young. I felt like I was the man, right? I didn't have the space to truly appreciate it from a aspect of humility. I was just like, yeah, beat the charges, right? So that was that. Um,
So what
later on,
direction did this take you to then?
well, I was still kind of like, I was trying to figure out my way out the street, but like I said, I was young, so I was still thugging. Like I was still thugging hard at the same time. Like I wasn't playing. Like you couldn't play with me. So After that, but I went to college. Right? I went to college. I had a son. My son started living with me for a while, so I was my participation in the program really had a major impact on me. It made me want to do better with myself in my life. What happened was this dude got robbed in my neighborhood, and when this dude got robbed, my friends robbed him. I didn't rob him. Um, my friend's house got shot up with an AK. Almost killed his mother. His mother's room was right in the front of the house. So when the bullets literally went through her headboard and she
Jeez.
almost died, she was laying this way. They said if she was laying the other way, she would have without a doubt have been killed. So after that, that kind of at that point I fell back again. I was like getting my life in order. I was selling a little weed, but I was going to college full time. And I was a father. So at that point when it happened, like it put me in a bad situation because I wanted to continue to do the positive things that I was doing, but I felt like like I felt compelled to engage. Like I asked my friend, I'm like, yo, what you want to do? I felt engaged. I felt compelled to engage because you just shot my friend's house up. Like, he felt bad. He wanted to go to war, so I was like, all right, let's go. So I ended up engaging in one of the biggest like wars that my town and my community has seen in decades, and this was going on for months. Like every day, it was shootouts, stabbing, chasing. Like it was very violent, man. It was very violent. Like these are brothers that I grew up with. We all grew up together. We went to the same stores. So now you wake up in the morning, you go to the store to get a bacon, egg, and cheese. It could be a regular store run or it could be a shootout, right? You don't know what's gonna happen, right? And it was so much pride and ego going on between us. Like nobody was just like, what, I'm going to the other store. It was just like this is how we were living at the time. So for months, about 8 months, it was just back and forth violence, and like I said, fights, shooting, stabbings, which ended up eventually in somebody dying, right? And when that happened, um, that's when I did my last bid. I got 11 years. I was facing life, and originally they were offering my first offer was 15 to life, but I ended up getting 11 years. So it was in that time, that term of my incarceration, where things really snapped for me, and I was
Can
like,
you
oh,
can you expand on the why you got 11 years?
yeah, somebody, unfortunately, it was an incident that took place, and somebody was shot and killed.
And it was on like you were involved with a group of guys or
Yeah, well, I was arrested. I was arrested for that incident. Me and two other gentlemen were arrested for that incident, and based off of that arrest, um, we were all locked up.
and then when you went to court and stuff, you were facing 15 years and then you ended up getting 11, right?
Yeah, I was facing life. I was facing life, right? Like, I was facing life, 25 to life. 15 to life was my first offer. Um, but I was facing life, just period. Yeah.
So how
So,
did it end up working out for you then? How did you get 11?
um, so I copped out. I copped out to 11. It was actually 12 that they was offering me. So what happened was I went to court. They offered me. So I'm lying. They offered me my very 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 first offer was like 13. And I sent my lawyer back up, paid $100,000 for the lawyer. Sent my lawyer back up. I said, yo, listen, if they could do 10, we could rock. And the lawyer came back and he like, yo, so I'm like, oh, they got 10? He like, nah. They said all offers off the table. The only offer that they offering right now is 15 to life. And they said that because they thought that they alleged that somebody that got arrested with me was giving orders for a witness to get hurt. This was the allegations. I'm not saying it was true, but because of those allegations, they took the offers back. Then they was offering 15 to life. They were offering 15 to life for like few months. I'm like, nah. Then a few months in, I went to pre-trial. We went to pre-trial. Um, this woman came forth, and this woman um, stated and said and was going to go to court and said that um, I didn't have anything to do with it. She's like, "Your Rich didn't have anything to do with it. He was trying to break it up." So when she said that, my lawyer caught wind of it. They dropped the offer to 12 years, and he came to visit me, and he like, "Yo, listen, they took for 12 years right now." And he kind of broke it down to me. So at that time, I had that case, but I also had like two other open cases also. So he like, "Yo, listen." He like, honestly, they really don't got you on this. So he like, "Yo, I'm pretty sure I could beat it, right?" He said, "Also, I want you to take into consideration that this is Nassau County, so they don't play fair, right? There's a lot of racism, bias going on around here." He said, "Nonetheless, with that being said, I'm pretty sure I could beat it." He said, "But you got a gun charge, and with the gun charge, it was an inoperable weapon. Like with the gun charge, you facing anywhere from 2.5 to 7. So they could give you 3.5, 4 on that. And I had another charge, which was a burglary. And he like, yo, you facing another, they could give you another 5 for that. And they could run it all concurrent. So you could get 5 and 5 for each of those, which would be 10. And that's without taking the risk of spending, of still losing and having to do life and trying to get it back on the pill. So, it made sense. So I took his advice, and when I went to court, they were still offering 12, and I'm like, "Yo, listen, if you give me 10, we could rock." And he came back, and he's like, "Yo, they offering 11," and and so I took it. I took it, and that was the beginning of like my state journey, like my prison journey.
Yeah, and so when you got into prison, how did you feel with that 11 years on you?
I mean, listen, man, I felt blessed, but also that's 11 years. Like I was 22, that's a long time. So, um, I really loved like my friends and like the set. Like I really believe I was one of them dudes that really, really believed. And I wasn't in like the gang. I wasn't in my set, my team. That's my family. I wasn't in it for protection or like I was in it for the brotherhood. Like, these are my brothers. We raised each other. So like it was a lot of disloyalty happening and a lot of selfishness, and that kind of like opened my eyes. And I was like shocked. I was hurt, but that was what I needed to kind of reevaluate was the way that I was thinking, right? I also had a son. I left my son out there, so I was just questioning like my loyalty to my son. Just my actions, and that made me like just kind of start to slowly like destroy the mind frame that I had and just rebuild. And one thing that I knew was that I had a whole bunch of felonies, which means that if anybody meets me or before they meet me, they're gonna have something to judge me by, paper or something on paper to judge me by before they even get a chance to know me, something negative. So I knew that I needed something positive on paper for them to judge me by as well to balance out the negative. So because of that, I wanted to go to college. This prison that I was in happened to have a college program, so I applied. I failed, or they didn't let me in rather. I waited a few months and I applied again to a new one, and they allowed me in. And I started my college journey. And college and prison was amazing because it provided freedom. Like it was mental freedom. Every time I go in that classroom, I was free. Just reading the books and getting to understand and crunching my brain and opening my brain to new topics, new understanding, new ways of thinking. Because academic thinking, right, and academic writing, or rather, academic writing is a way of thinking, right? Academic thinking causes you to look at things panoramically from every angle. It even causes you to put yourself in the shoes of the person that's going against you and contemplate what their argument would be. So just my way of thinking was heightened, and the things that I was already doing was emphasized. So and also it was like every time I do a paper and I'm waiting for a response, that was like a letter. Every time I go to class, that was like a visit, like that human interaction. The prison that I was in was like the guards treat you like shit, And all of the brothers that's locked up, it's such high tension that we're not even in the right mind to really build with each other, especially people that we don't really know, because you don't want to mess with somebody that could be detrimental to your well being, right? So like it was great to have, those people around. I ended up graduating with my associates and starting on some of my bachelors, and just the connections I made there were invaluable. So all of that prepared me for the moment that I was coming home. Because one thing I didn't know, I knew I had a date, and because I knew I had a date, I was blessed, and I knew I would have a chance. So I had to be prepared for that chance. I love music. I rap. So I used to always rap in the yard. I was the best in any jail that I went to. Um, and just all of these things, man, I had to mentally prepare myself. I said, listen, when you go home, you're not gonna have jewelry. I love jewelry. Like I love getting money. Like I love jewelry. I love certain things. I love slot things. I love slot cars. Right? You could tell by right. But I had to mentally program myself. Like, listen, when you come home, you're not gonna have any jewelry. When you come home, you're not gonna be in a fly car. You might not be in a car at all. And when you do get some money, those are not the things that are important. What is important is you taking care of your family. What is important is that you implement and you create these systems that will make sure that you're good. Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, right? When he speaks about assets versus liabilities and the different quadrants, which um, like highlight different roles that people play. I don't want to be in the employee role. I don't even want to be in the self-employed role. I want to be in the role where I'm creating passive income for myself. So these are the things that always been in my mind. You need passive income, rich dad, poor dad. So like I said, like listen, these things are more important. This is what your money has to go to, because once your money is there, you'll be able to do whatever it is that you want to do. Right? Like so, once you get your foundation right, you can move up. So for me, I always thought like that. So fast forward, well, you got any questions or just keep going?
Oh no, I'm good, man. I'm just listening. I'm hearing you, man. That's what I was gonna go into next. Is like how, when you were in prison, like you educated yourself, and these were the things that you educated yourself on, and continued to build yourself, and smarten your mindset. Like the change instantly kind of happened, right? When you were in prison, that's when you wanted to change your mind.
It wasn't instant. It was gradual. It happened in hand. Just after this, at this point, I've been locked up a few times. So I'm like, this again, right? Like, and now you're facing the rest of your life. Like, if you're facing life, that's different, right? Like, if anybody's ever experienced that, that's different. You doing 10, 15 years, that's different. I mean, you could be in jail for 1,000 days and still have 2,000 days left, right? 2,500 days left. So like, that's different. Like, um, and there's nobody there to help you. You gotta help yourself. You can have your mother, you can have a girlfriend, you can have brothers, you can have all these people that love you and that'll go to bat for you. But when you're in there, it's you. It's just you. So you gotta learn that you really learn how to depend on yourself, right? Like how to make the best decision. If you make the wrong decision, you're done. But yeah, it was a lot, right? But I
So,
made it through. Hmm?
so what did you when you were getting closer to getting out of prison? What was the last things you were doing in there to prepare
Just prepare,
yourself?
just preparing, reading, drawing out plans. Like I still got business plans from jail that I haven't even used yet. But I didn't even know it. But I was mentally preparing myself to be active out here. I was always in there. I was always going to school. I was working. I was writing my own things. I wrote books. I wrote scripts. I wrote plays. I wrote music. So I was conditioning myself to be working, 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 working nonstop. And when you get out here, that's the type of energy and grind that you need because it's so fast paced. So I didn't know that at the time, but that ended up being very valuable to me, right? And so when I came out here now, I got a I graduated summa cum laude. I got a 3.9, damn near 4.0 GPA. Like I'm very intelligent, so I'm thinking I'll definitely be able to find a job. And I was out here, but I couldn't find no job. Not even at Home Depot. Screwed not even at Home Depot. Like, I couldn't find labor jobs, nothing. So a friend of mine, actually one of my mentors from that program, Sean, that I was telling you about, she put me on. So I started working for this program called Ready, Willing, and Able. Ready, Willing, and Able is really a program for brothers who are recently released from prison or brothers who um, are homeless. So I started working there for minimum wage, cleaning the streets. And I was doing that for a while. And I was very embarrassed doing that. I didn't want to be sweeping and mopping those streets in downtown Brooklyn. But in prison, they give you 15 hours every 2 weeks, and I was making 15 an hour. So I took it all as part of my journey. And like I told you, I was mentally prepared to go through the hardships. And I did that for about 8 months. But what I was doing was I used to work 6 days a week, 50 some hours a week. I used to have one day that was off. And instead of resting on that day, I used to do one thing for my brand. Name of my brand is So Rich. So Rich. Um, the name comes from the fact that a lot of times when people think of being rich, they think of money. And while money is necessary to survive in this world, we can't forget that we are so rich in so many other things. For those of us who are blessed to have our family, we so rich in family, we so rich in love. If you have a vision, you so rich in ambition, so rich in respect, right? So that's where the name comes from. So I used to do one thing for my brand on that seventh day, whether it's go to the studio to record or whether it's um, get some merch printed up. Like I used to do different things. I used to teach classes on history, Black Wall Street, or on the different books that I read. I used to teach classes to the kids and their parents. So I was doing that for a month. For 8 months. Working, seventh day give back. Working, seventh day invest in a brand. Once I got to like my height, like the ceiling, I was frustrated. I didn't want to be here anymore. I saved about 13,000. I got another job offer for the same organization that helped me out when I was a kid. This young brother that you saw earlier, he's a part of that organization. And I got a job offer to help youth and build with youth and connect and intervene in the same program that I was a part of. So that was a blessing.
Yeah.
And then when I
No, I
did,
mean, oh, go ahead.
hmm?
Go
No,
ahead.
no, I'm listening.
Oh no, I was gonna say no. That is cool that you got to continue to work with them, just in a different job position to continue to be with them and work because it is still helping out and with youth and stuff. And I think that's probably what you're really passionate about now, especially being from where you were at to where you are now, just older, and you can offer a lot of advice and understand what they actually went through.
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. So,
So, what were you gonna say though? Where were you going at with where you're at next?
well, now, so listen, I love music. I'm a music artist. I'm a rapper. So I love doing that. I also work with youth. I'm a youth lead engagement specialist. I work with the young people in the community, just striving to take them off that negative path. I'm an entrepreneur. I have an event space that I open. It's called the Black House. Where we do photography, videography. We host intimate events. We rent the space out for intimate events, and we do community work there. So I actually have two businesses, So Rich Entertainment and So Rich and Community. But the Black House is my first physical location. So it's just blessings, man. It's just blessings to be able to come out here and impact the community and my people. I have to be his dad for so long.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just took a lot to get to where you are, man, and you still got a lot more to do. You know what I mean? And that you just got to keep pushing. And like you said, you started off with where you were at when you got out of prison. You worked at that job, picking up the trash, and you had one day to invest in the brand. And that's where you start, and then eventually you continue to be able to work more and more at it as time goes on, man. As long as you stay consistent and continue to invest in it, because it will eventually gradually work, and the more time you put into it, obviously, the more it's going to actually start to grow, and then you're going to be able to live off of it, or make a living off of it. So it's pretty cool to see that you had that transition.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, any other things you want to talk about before we wrap up or promote?
Listen, man. If you're in the New York or the East Coast area, you're looking for a premier luxury event space, come to the Black House.
He's got a great story that shines light on how people can change their life around. Please comment any key takeaways that you got from this interview with him. Please share it with anyone that you think that will enjoy this type of podcast. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's podcast. Hit the notification button if you want to get notified when the next podcast drops. Hit subscribe if you want to continue to get more interviews from me. Also, at the end of this video, a playlist will pop up of all the other Invest in Yourself podcasts I've done in the past. Thank you again so much for watching, and of course, we'll see you on the next one.